morning. My name is Graham Elsnian. This is Yara Ghazali. That is Fatima Ghazali. Our question is, to what extent does low socioeconomic status impact the educational perspective? I will be presenting the scientific perspective. Yara will be presenting the social perspective. Fatima will be presenting the economic perspective. To begin, in the article by Dan Hurley, Can You Make Yourself Smarter? A study done by Sylvia Bunge, who is a director of a laboratory on the building blocks of cognition. Low socioeconomic students were given a game designed to produce quicker response skills, which resulted in a 10-point increase in their IQ. In The Science of Genius by Dan Keith, a genius was described as a person with an IQ of 140 points. From these two articles, the question of what is stopping a person from reaching genius status formed, which led us to the question, to what extent does low socioeconomic status impact educational opportunities? Ongoing debate includes the fact that it can be argued that socioeconomic status is not the biggest factor stopping people from losing educational opportunity. But scientifically, low socioeconomic status can overall affect your mental well-being as well as your personal health, which in return does negatively affect your educational opportunity.
Socially, low socioeconomic status can cause conflict between family relationships and unbalanced prioritization of needs.
Economically, college enrollment is low in areas of low socioeconomic status, and educational resources are low as well. For our team solution, we have a welfare program similar to the one implemented in Canada and France. So there would be a progressive tax, which means that the richer will get taxed higher and than the lower class. And as the more income you get, the higher you get taxed. And the taxes are used to fund the program. So the taxes are used, and it gives you, the government pays for Medicare and education, so everything is free and you just need to pay for your taxes. And the limitations and implications is, if this program were implemented, the wealthy would be very angry because they would believe that it would be unfair for them to be taxed this high, and it would stunt their economic growth because they wouldn't be getting as much money because they have to pay for taxes. And if it's not followed through, the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer, which means that the poor won't be getting as much money, which would decrease their educational opportunities, and the rich will continue to get more money, like money isn't going anywhere.
Okay, so for our alternate solution, we have, according to Frederick Hale, bachelor's degree in law and foreign affairs, where we implement high taxes on everybody to keep it fair, but education will be paid for completely. However, Medicare will be limited based on salary, so the government will help you if you have low income. If you have a higher income, you won't be helped as much for Medicare. Then we have the unemployed. If they had low income, they can qualify for benefits such as food stamps. We have that in the U.S. too. And then when you are unemployed, you have 60 weeks to find a job before you lose government help, and you get paid 80% of your previous salary.
For our first perspective, scientific, according to Dr. William McFarland, who is a PhD in public health, people of low socioeconomic status are 6% more likely to be impacted by AIDS or HIV, which results in inadequate sex education classes in low socioeconomic status neighborhoods because those places don't generally pay as well, which doesn't attract people of higher education to teach the sex education classes. It can be argued, which it has by Dr. Mary Jane Rotham-Boris, who has a PhD in public health, that the programs will be in no way funded, which if it's not funded, it will not succeed. But according to Dr. McFarland, government agencies have been known to fund places with very high rates of HIV and AIDS. In this graph, it is shown that people with the lower your household income is, the higher HIV positive you are. So here are people that make more than $50,000 are under 1% impacted by HIV. According to Dr. Sonia Lupian, who has a PhD in neuroscience, Stress can stem from environmental factors. An example of this can be examined when a school is in a place of low socioeconomic status that is generally more prone to distractions, such as airports. And students who are more distracted report higher blood pressure, which ultimately negatively impacts their cognitive skills. It can be argued that stress from the surrounding factors is not enough to detriment the future of a child, but short term that may be true, according to Dr. Sonia Lupian. But long-term factors, which are more frequent in the areas of low socioeconomic status, cognitive skills will suffer as a result.
Okay, socially we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in which Saul McLeod, PhD in psychology, says it shows that low socioeconomic status families, the kids focus more on like their health and like their living rather than their education, because they're more focused on how they're going to live. Now, some people argue, according to Joan M. Keel, PhD in philosophy, that the system of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy is outdated, and that like parents now encourage their kids to get a better education. But if you look at like on a day-to-day basis, hunger and exhaustion, like those will take more importance, they're more significant on a day-to-day basis rather than their education, what they're going to do for the night. So if you look at this graph, it shows you, this is what Maslow's hierarchy is. It shows you the needs that like start off, obviously you need your basic needs, air, water, food, and then you go up to where education, love, and belonging and stuff like that. So family relationships. According to Randy Conger, PhD in sociology, high school dropout rates are in low-income families are like much higher than higher-income families, and because of the financial burden, where families like the students feel like they need to work to help their family out financially, and this causes stress on the family relationships. They don't see each other much, and it could cause like kids to start blaming their families for all this stuff and them having to work. Now, according to Dr. Edith Chen, PhD in clinical psychology, she says that dropout rates are not always due to working students. Sometimes kids make the wrong friends and they end up in bad places. Though that may be true, according to the APA, American Psychological Association, if you look at statistics, it shows that the majority of students that are dropping out are working. So look at this graph. This graph shows high school dropout rates, and if you look at the black right here, it shows the working, and that's higher in all of them, higher than all of the not working and all.
So economically, we're talking about education at home, and Gigi Lamb, who has a degree in educational psychology, talks about how parents are able to pay for extracurricular activities and lessons, which can help impact their intellectual development. But Erin Doyle, who has a PhD in educational studies, says that parents may be able to do it themselves and don't have to waste the money. But Gigi Lamb argues that many parents that have low socioeconomic status don't have the education to teach their children, because the reason they're in that have low socioeconomic status is because they can't find a good job and don't have the education. And for college enrollment, children who have low socioeconomic status enroll in smaller colleges, and based on their economic status and how much their family can afford. But some say that they could enroll in a smaller college, which their family could pay for, but because those colleges have such low tuition, that means they have low academic success. You could see here that the highest, 25% attended a four-year college, but the poorest 25%, only 44% of them actually attended a four-year college, and 31% of them did not attend college at all. In conclusion, low socioeconomic status individuals are at a disadvantage compared to people who are wealthy and have high socioeconomic status when it comes to their education. And this is by William H. Sewell, who has a PhD in sociology, and Vimal P. Shah, who has a PhD in social sciences.
Okay, the first question goes to Yara. Describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Okay, so as a result of our group discussion, we'll go back to Graham's slides. where she talks about like environmental factors, where basically their home life and what happens around them. It kind of influenced mine, where it was like standard of living, because I talked about the hierarchy of needs and how kids focus more on that, their living rather than their education. And so Ground talks about stress and financial burden and stuff like that. So it works here where I had to change a little bit to make it more connected altogether.
Second question goes to Laurent. And it is, how did the group decide to include Fatima's perspective lens conclusion into the overall presentation?
So, in Fatima's presentation, she talks about education at home and how kids cannot be able to pay for extracurricular activities. So, to include that in our whole presentation, our solution, which was welfare, is a way for kids to be able to save money. So that allows them to be able to participate in extracurricular activities after school.
Okay, and the last question goes to Fatima. Give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Yara's findings.
Okay, so when finding out about her findings, she talks about the family relationships, and that impacted my lens about education at home, because the family relationships, because they won't have time to spend with each other because they're working, really impacted like how I figured out what to do with this lens. So this lens is like, they can't pay for specific activities, they get to spend more time with their family, but also the relationship with their family may be impacted because they aren't able to do things that others can do.